One more.
Good afternoon. Yesterday morning, 4 elected mayors received notification from a non-elected official of Alberta Health Services that they were changing ambulance dispatch services. We were blindsided. We were strongly opposed to this planned change to EMS dispatch. This change will jeopardize ambulance service and timely response to those who require it in Lethbridge and southwestern Alberta. In Lethbridge, our integrated fire and EMS system saves money and serves patients with the earliest possible response. Our duly trained paramedics resulted in fire apparatus responding to medical emergencies 29% of the time in 2019, thereby saving lives. We wish to work with the Government of Alberta to provide the most efficient and effective system of EMS response that best serves those in need and that provides the best possible service in saving lives. Municipalities and Albertans value an EMS system that is collaborative and accountable. We don't think that'll happen when it consolidates within AHS. The projected $6 million in cost savings identified in the Ernst & Young report do not take into account the additional expenses that will be incurred by municipalities. In the case of Lethbridge, we estimate these costs to be $2.89 million. In short, EMS dispatch consolidation was a bad idea when it was proposed in the past, and it's a bad idea now. The Ernst & Young report was completed without consultation with municipalities. We call upon the Minister of Health and we call upon Premier Jason Kenney to personally intervene to avoid creating a less effective EMS response system that will place Albertans in emergency situations at greater risk. This is about saving lives, period. A consolidated system means people will die unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mayor Spearman, Mayor Veer, Mayor Scott, for eloquently highlighting the challenge that we've got in front of us here. Look, I'm tired. I'm tired of this. This was a bad idea in 2009. It was a bad idea in 2011. It was a bad idea in 2013. It was a bad idea in 2016, and nothing has changed. It's still a bad idea. Let's just be clear about something, and I can go into all the facts and all the numbers, and I will, but let's just be clear about one thing. When you're phoning 911, you're phoning 911 because you're having the worst day of your life. Something extremely bad is happening. And the system we have right now allows you to get the assistance you need quickly and efficiently. The system that is being proposed requires you to tell your story again and again and maybe again. It means that it'll take longer for you to get help, and it won't save any money. So why in the world this government is attempting to go forward with this yet again over the vociferous opposition, as you've heard, from the communities impacted is beyond me. People will die. No money will be saved. And fundamentally, Alberta Health Services is trying to go forward with this yet again. So in Calgary, each year, we have about 25,000 emergency medical calls. In nearly half those cases, the Calgary Fire Department gets there before the paramedics, and they provide emergency life-saving treatment. This service costs us about $10.5 million a year to subsidize the healthcare system. However, it works. Our average time of dispatch, about 41 seconds before someone is on their way to help you. In 2015, we ran a bunch of modeling, and we found that that number would go up to 180 seconds. And I was surprised to hear the chief paramedic say yesterday that anyone who tells you the response times are going up is not telling you the truth, or that the experience that someone who calls 911 will be the same. Both of those things are false. They're completely wrong. They are lies. The chief paramedic himself, when presented with our modeling in 2015, actually said, well, you know, not that big a deal. Not that many people will die in the first 3 minutes anyway. I happen to care about those people who will die in the first 3 minutes. I care about the cardiac patients. I care about the people like my dad who've had a traumatic brain injury and who need that life-saving assistance, and they need it quickly. Fundamentally, we also are not saving any money here. We are replacing 45 dedicated 911 operators at the City of Calgary with 25 people being hired province-wide. The estimate that the City of Calgary has done is that the net savings to Alberta Health Services from this are less than $1 million. That's $1 million now that we are actually subsidizing Alberta Health Services under our current contract. So there's no money to be saved. It's worse service, and it puts people's lives at risk. This is a terrible idea. It was done without consultation. It was done without discussion. The Ernst & Young report, as far as I know, E&Y, did not speak to a single person actually working in the system the way that it stands right now. The government spent a lot of money on a very expensive stenographer who wrote down ideas that were given to them and apparently in this case did not in any way analyze those ideas. So fundamentally, no consultation, bad idea then, bad idea now. So I appeal to Minister Shandro. Look, Minister Zładecki said no. Minister Horn said no. Minister Mandel said no and added because it was such a fiasco in Edmonton. Minister Hoffman said no. Minister Shandro, it's time to say no.
Thank you very much, Mayor Nenshi. Our first question comes from Paul Cowley with the Red Deer Advocate for Mayor Veer. How many Red Deer dispatch jobs will be lost under this change?
Just let me look that up. I believe it was 35. 4 or 5. Okay. Sorry, just conferring with staff here. We anticipate that it's about 4 or 5, but I want to be perfectly clear that, obviously job loss is an ongoing significant concern that we all have given the state of our local and provincial economy. But to be very clear, there are a couple of key points of fact. Integrated dispatch is essential to saving lives and to having timely emergency response. When someone calls 911, it's important to note that there is the dispatch time, there is the shoot time, there is the travel time, and then there is the staging time. And in that, all of that builds into the bigger picture and the patient outcomes. Red Deer has had an integrated dispatch model and as a best practice for many, many years as part of our efforts to provide positive patient outcomes as we respond to our citizens and throughout the region. So our main purpose is less focusing on the specific, direct financial impacts to the city of Red Deer. Our primary focus is patient outcomes for people that we serve in the city of Red Deer and throughout the region in the interests of patient outcomes. The second point I would really like to emphasize is the fact that since February, we have been in discussions and in tension with the Ministry of Health and have waited for Alberta Health Services and have engaged in good faith and were deferred for very good reasons in the pandemic. But it's certainly after the fact, we have been deferred, waiting for the right opportunity from the government's perspective for us to be able to demonstrate that the Ernst & Young report does not have comprehensive, holistic information that demonstrates how the positive, the economies of scale from a financial perspective, but certainly from a service level integration perspective, and above all, a patient outcome perspective. So for us to receive notice yesterday when we were promised a consultation with Alberta Health Services, as the timeline demonstrates, the Minister of Health was surprised to hear that the municipalities had not been consulted. And then once a consultation, quote unquote, was scheduled, then it was canceled and put off, and then we received a formal letter of notice. I think Albertans deserve better than that, and that is our primary point.
Thank you. The next question comes from Shannon Scott with CBC Calgary.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. For Mayor Spearman in Lethbridge, I am wondering, you talked about that this move will actually cost your city $2.89 million. I'm wondering what that money would be spent on.
Thank you for your question. Certainly, what we'd be looking at there is in terms of how we respond with our that 2.89 million is what we think we're subsidizing Alberta Health by first responses. So that's the cost of fire services substituting for ambulance services in that case. So that cost would ultimately have to be borne somewhere else, and the challenge would be how we would adapt. We think we make the best use of individuals, our trained individuals, because they're duly trained as fighters and paramedics. Of course, they're versatile, and we think that the taxpayer gets the best bang for the dollar. So when we look at the 4,703 medical first responses and motor vehicle collisions attended to in 2019, the value of that was $2.89 million.
Thank you very much.
Shannon, this is Mayor Veer. Could I weigh in on that point as well?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. It is very clear in our past dealings with Alberta Health Services on this matter that there is a fallacy that exists that ambulance somehow subsidizes fire services. And each of our municipalities can effectively demonstrate that that is unequivocally not the case. In support of what Mayor Spearman had said, so the Ernst and Young report had indicated an expected $5 to $6 million in savings. So to add to Mayor Spearman's aggregate costs, as I outlined, in 2019, there were just over 3,500 medical co-responses. In 40% of those, so 1,400 of those cases, our pump co-response was the first to arrive on scene. So while an ambulance was being waited for, our advanced life support fire medics were able to begin administering care to the respective patients in those calls. And our anticipated aggregate costs there are about 2.5 million. And then I'll defer to Mayor Nanchi because he also outlined his specific costs in terms of fire subsidizing the medical service response.
Yes, very briefly. Our emergency medical response costs Calgary taxpayers about $10.5 million a year. None of that is reimbursed by Alberta Health Services. In fact, the cost of running the integrated dispatch under the last contract that we had with AHS, we actually ate about $1 million of the cost because they wanted to pay less than the service actually costs. So for them to take it over, I don't understand how it can possibly save any money.